Hello, hello.
Hello.
Aloha. Mm,
We're all here. Yay. We made it. All in tip-top shape. Tip-top shape. Mm.
Good to see everyone.
Do you want to see other yogis, your friends on the other pages? Please do. Mm. Very good to see you. Mm.
Mm. Well, we hope everyone is doing well as can be. It'll be nice to sit together and hear some words from Michele. So yeah, let's get settled in. Mm. Letting your eyes come to close and trying to start to get settled into a seated posture. It feels relatively comfortable for a little while. Mm. Just checking in with what's happening right now in the various streams of your present moment experience. Of course, it's helpful to notice what's happening in the body based senses, in the body itself, realm of hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting. And at the same time, it's always helpful to get a sense of the predominant flavors of the mind, heart right now. Sometimes we'll notice the mind more drawn, the attention more drawn to one or the other. Often, if there's something more intense happening in the heart mind, and we'll be drawn into more involvement there and lose perspective. Sometimes that can be provided by the other sense door. Or if there's something challenging happening at another sense door, sometimes it's important to remember to pull the attention away, anchor it elsewhere. Help give us a little bit of perspective, space, distance. And so we recognize our practice as sometimes this dance of exploration and permissiveness, of just kind of openness of the mind, the attention towards whatever is happening, and trying to keep up with it, trying to observe it, understand, care for it. And other times we recognize the need for some discipline, right? For the energy of restraint, of guiding, of narrowing the field of attention towards something that we can be with mindfully. If what's predominant is something that is hard to see clearly, hard to see carefully, hard to be with kindly. And so we offer this notion of a primary field of attention, not at the exclusion of others, but giving ourselves some field where it feels like it's possible for us to maintain a relationship over time. And that's cultivating these beautiful qualities of mindfulness, concentration, investigation, interest, patience, kindness. Knowing that the attention will be drawn elsewhere, the mind will lose interest or get fixated on something else. Always open to that, always being interested when the mind feels like it needs to move away. We're curious about the motivation of that, where it looks for security. And then recognizing how helpful it is and can be to bring the attention back. Bring it to a primary object, field of attention. Observe as closely as we can. Sometimes the helpfulness of the noting can really be clear when the mind is agitated and finds other material more compelling. If we attend to the field of sound, for example, and just noticing the arising and passing of all of the textures and tones, vibrations, the realm of hearing. It can be amazing to see how much there is to observe and how hard it is. Be motivated to deepen this relationship with sound. You don't always label it with the idea of what we think we're hearing. It's something that just registers a connection, soft, sweet, rough, harsh, muffled, clear. Noticing, of course, at times where the noting may lean towards a layer of And just being careful to try to have it rooted as much as possible in the direct experience of sound. Harshness rising, harshness passing, sweetness increasing, sweetness dissipating. Thumping, persistent, whatever it may be. And that, of course, we can practice in a similar way in the body. If sound does not feel like it's an anchor or a field of attention that can really hold our momentary awareness, throughout the body, all these sensations, pressing, pressing, tingling, tingling, warmth, warmth, aching, aching, pressure, pressure. Remembering this capacity of the mental note to really connect us with the direct physical experience in the body, not as an overlay, not as a command, as a recognition, an acknowledgement of what we're feeling in a way that keeps the mind attentive. We narrow into the area of the hands. You can still notice pressure, warmth, light touch. It's constantly changing movement of experience. Or in the area around the abdomen, as the breath is moving on its own, increasing pressure, decreasing pressure, rising, rising, falling, falling. Trusting in the simplicity of this beautiful connection, moment by moment. Watching the mind go elsewhere, wandering, wandering, wanting, wanting, worrying, worrying, planning, planning, imagining, fearing, craving. Not controlling the mind, just observing, noting, watching, receiving, acknowledging. But because the heart mind's so hard to follow, for now, coming back to the breath or the hands, the body or sound. Whatever other truths that we may find compelling, trusting in the truth of this present moment experience, pressure, softness, hearing. maintaining this relationship with this aspect of reality. Finding our way to the deeper truths that the mind is capable of. As we connect to these constantly changing, undependable, unpredictable, unsatisfactory element of existence. And the mind stops seeking satisfaction from that which is always changing. But only through this recognition and watching it cling, watching it reject, watching it find distraction. Training the attention in the truth wherever we can.
I would say that most of the talk is about finding equanimity and loving kindness, brahmaviharas in hard times. I hope most of you have heard of the movie Pay It Forward. But that expression, even if you haven't seen the movie, the expression pay it forward has become a big part of what you might hear in the culture once in a while. And it means that if you have received some kindness from someone or something good happens to you, that you pay it forward, that you receive it and then offer it to someone else or some other being. It's pay it forward. The other day, after the election, I went to the health food store to go shopping, and there was a man that looked, I've seen him before, but he looked more upset than usual. And I got up to the cash register and I was behind him with my cart, and he was kind of slamming things down on the little thing that rolls along where you put your stuff, and then he noticed that there was no place for me to put my stuff because he hadn't put that, I don't even know what it's called, that thing there that makes it space for you. Like, and so he seemed very discombobulated. So the lady working there put it there for me. And then he looked at me and he said, "Gone are the days of pay it forward." It's like they're gone, they're gone. He's like, "Just imagine how much this food is going to cost me," and he starts going on and on. And so he, starts putting his food where she can check it out, and he looks at me again. Gone are the days of paying it forward. So I said, when it got quiet, I noticed that he had a lot of cookies. Like he had normal food, but then I started paying attention. He had these really kind of good looking macaroons. So I said, well, I said, since I'm behind you, awesome. Like I said, maybe you can pay it backward. Maybe you could give me some of your macaroons. And everyone behind me started laughing, and the lady started laughing, and he couldn't like hold on to like how despairing he is, right? Like, and he just like I said, let's just pay it backward. It's okay. We don't have to pay it forward. Look, I'm right here. And it was great, right? It was great because humor sometimes pops the bubble, right? And it's like you can tell if you have gone out in the world a bit, there's quite a range of response going on. In fact, I bumped into a friend that day after pay it backwards, and she told me she had gone to a yoga class Wednesday night. And so it was the usual yoga class, and then at the end they always lay down and the teacher does a short guided meditation, and it's usually silent. And this time she suggested that during their silent meditation that they think of one positive thing that they have gotten out of the election. And this is like Wednesday, right? Wednesday night. This is Wednesday. I don't know how you felt Wednesday, but so she, like, they were all supposed to be lying there thinking of the positive thing that they'd gotten out of it. And then she said that they were going to share, they were going to get in a circle. I did get the macaroon, by the way. That was the, I did, sorry, I did get the macaroon. Anyway, they're supposed to share, from a very deep place, from a very quiet place, you know, at the end in a circle. And so they got in a circle and nobody said anything. It's a big class. Nobody said anything. And so today, when I was thinking about what Jesse and I were going to do, I was just like, is it better to just be quiet? But here's my talk. I I think we all have to appreciate hunkering down and rebooting and stillness and quiet nature, um, the invisible Dhamma. The Dhamma is invisible, but it's very palpable. It's here, and I know a lot of people are just pulling back from objects now, just pulling back from everything and trying to just really be connected to the Dhamma. I had a student that grew up in Africa, lived in New Zealand, and his grandmother was part Maori. He was a very colorful being. And he said that sometimes when his grandmother was very troubled or upset, she would find him. He was a little boy at that point, and she'd say, come on to me, let's have a cup of tea and pull ourselves around. And I love that. I'm doing that lately again. It's like, come on, Michelle, let's have a cup of tea and pull ourselves around. Just if we can't pull back from objects and just kind of sit quietly and then do our practice, right? Sixth sense door, moment to moment meditation, Brahma Viharas, but also there are many other things that we can do, right? It's like pulling back from the fray, right? There's so much blaming going on right now. It's like, okay, right? Isn't there enough suffering without this array of blame? Right. It's just like, it's not that it's not an important to do an analysis, but it's so much of it is not being able to cope with the pain. And I would say it's not just America. We have friends all over the world that are suffering from this and other things. So in 2016, my blood pressure went up to 198 over 103 or something ridiculous, that 2016 election. And so I was sort of wondering, oh boy, what's going to happen this time? And that we live in Hawaii, so that we get the results no matter what. We you can't really avoid them because we're early in the time zone compared to everybody else, or later compared to where you live. So I had a dream Tuesday night, or nightmare, however you want to say it. And it was very powerful. I kept waking up over and over again, and I was in guerrilla war, hiding in the woods, fighting. It was very rough, no shelter, very little food. And whenever I would wake up, I would say to the commander, I'd say, I'm too old for this. No, just really like, and I would be like a lucid aware that this was happening. I'd be like, I am too old for this. And then it would start again, and I'd wake up again and I'd say, I'm too old for this all night. And one time I found that I had dirt in my pockets, and I was picking up dirt and saving it to make a pillow. And that was like the rest of the night, like just like, oh, and I really couldn't make sense of it right away that next day. But I've really come to see that I've been doing that my whole life, almost. it's like the karma of this, my generation and those after. It's just like the Buddha taught, there's some people who have few dust motes in their eye. Yeah. And that, we can be free of greed, hatred, and delusion. And whether that's an inward battle or outward battle, it's a battle until the war is over completely. One is always more peaceful than peace itself. Some of us are maybe more underground in that battle. Some people are on the very visible, but so important. I first went to Burma to teach, I think it was 1997 or 1998. And the cook at the monastery, we found out that he liked to play the violin, and the next year brought him a violin, and he taught us, from what we understood, the most beloved folk song of Burma people. And things were really bad there then, really horrible then. Uh, and for those of you who don't know the history that well, there was a huge uprising in 1988, and there was a lot of the students in Rangoon fought and either were killed or they ran to the jungle. And some of them are still fighting. One of these people are the one helping us do humanitarian aid projects on the border. He's still fighting. He's like the real deal. And in 2007, our Chazwa retreat was canceled because of the saffron revolution, when a lot of monks' bodies who had been killed floated down the river in front of the monastery. And Sayadaw Ulakana decided not to hold the retreat that year. So we decided to hold the retreat in Thailand, and Steve taught it with Sayadaw Ulakana. I think Lynn Bousfield from Australia helped teach. And we decided to do a project that was hidden. I'm not going to really go into it, to try to help from another point of view in Burma of what we had been doing. And I had to meet with a big group of the guerrilla war people or fighters from that generation 88 time up in Chiang Mai. And I had only really gone into Burma and been at monasteries or nunneries. I hadn't been, never in my life actually been around a group of people like this, frankly. But this was like really different. And these guys looked so strung out, like like they'd just been fighting in the jungle their whole lives. It was so deep, the amount of suffering I could feel, the loss of their families, the loss of their education in the college, university, the loss of what their dreams, life, and so I looked around, and what was being served was whiskey. And I was like, well, Michelle, we're not in Kansas anymore. Like it was whiskey. And I'm like, well, I can't, I can just imagine, my body's so sensitive. I can just have a little bit of something and forget it. But I took a little bit and just like was sitting there. Um, and I looked around and I was like, how are these men going to trust me? Asking them to do a very dangerous project. very worthwhile, but very dangerous. And I would have to speak, of course, through translation. Um, but I shared that I had started to go to Burma in 1998 and being with Sayadaw U Lakana up at Shazwa. And I said, would you like to hear a song I learned? And of course, I learned it in Burmese. And at that time, my memory was working better than now. I actually knew all the words to the song at that point. And then I sang it, and they all started crying. It was like singing the most beautiful lullaby. And it felt like we all could connect with our goodness and the goodness of the intention. I'm not sure that group of people ever got together again. But it was a very meaningful, how important our beloved lullabies or folk songs really are. There's such a they touch us very deeply. This morning went for a walk, and I was just so touched by the beauty, just the beauty of the morning. It's not nothing that different today, but just the mountains and the sky and my marigolds. The white flies haven't killed my marigold flowers, just the simplicity of the beauty. And I was just thinking, it's our home. The earth is our home, and we'll always want to protect it because we love it, right? We love our planet. We love our sky. When we're in touch with our loving kindness and our goodness and heart, we'll always want to protect what we love if we're connected. And I think sometimes, I've started to look at some really old ancient Chinese poetry that I haven't searched out for a while, but I find that I'm these last few days looking at them. This is one that reminds me of what we have to do sometimes when we want to be in touch with the invisible Dhamma and pulling back from outer world goals that maybe have been important the last weeks or months, or particularly the news. These peaks and cliffs are strange and rare, blue pine and cypress all around. It's quiet. Few men pass. A light-hearted sadness to live here distant at leisure. That poem is so old, they don't even know when it happened. Yun Kan Tan. There's another one. It's just that simple beauty. It's called Night Sitting. Night Sitting. The hermit doesn't sleep at night. In love with the blue of the vacant moon, the cool of the breeze that rustles the trees, rustles him too. I know this is our base. This is our spiritual home, and the Buddha was so clear, when he said that 100% of the holy life is spiritual friendship. Like this coming together to sit now, that like that 100% of our spiritual life is this friendship, is Sangha, and so important to like take refuge. The three refuges, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and to include all beings. Yeah. Particularly, I think when there are hard times, finding the Brahma Viharas and equanimity in hard times, the easy beings, yeah, the easy beings that are easy for us to find loving kindness with, not necessarily focusing on the difficult. The teachings are so basic in some ways, but really important. I remember when I did the loving kindness practice the first time with U Pandita for 2 months, and he didn't shift me to the difficult category, difficult being, for 6 weeks. And I kept thinking I was failing at the practice. I didn't know how the method of how that is taught with the categories. But the whole idea that you're getting an anchor with the metta, loving kindness, like you do in the Vipassana, though the Vipassana, the breath, or like Jesse was offering with sound, or the anchoring, with the hands, the coming back to something as neutral as possible. Well, with the loving kindness, you're coming back to the easiest being you can to find the connection with the loving kindness. And in difficult times, this is something you cultivate for years, so that when it's really kind of shaky, you have it. And really, it can be a tree or the wind right now, or you can cultivate more than one, but it's like that sense of like recognizing that importance of the spiritual friend. Here comes the wind. The wind just came up. I think it was my first 3-month retreat. I taught one of my bosses from a former job came in for an interview, like I was so shocked. He came in, he was there for the 3-month retreat, and he was assigned to me as a teacher, and we were both sort of surprised because the tables kind of turned. It was kind of fun. He did the 3-month retreat, and then the next spring I was teaching a 2-week retreat, and he had married in between the 3 months and that retreat. He came in, and his new wife wrote me a note and asked for an interview. And that was a retreat it was so full you didn't do interviews. And so I said yes. And she came in and introduced herself. And she was so sweet. I was so happy to meet her. And then she said, I just have one question. And I said, sure. And she said, well, when so and so, my husband comes back from work, sometimes I hear him just slam the door when he comes in and he says, may he be happy. And then he clomps down the hallway and he goes in the bedroom, he slams the door and he says, may he be peaceful. And then he comes out and he goes in the bathroom and he slams the door and he's like, may he be free from suffering. And she said, is that metta? And I'm like, well, I don't want to do marriage counseling here, but like, it's like he's trying. He's obviously trying. He's obviously working. I explain the categories. He's obviously working with a difficult person. I hope you recognize that place. Yeah. It's in us all, just that really, you know, overriding the anger or the emotion and just trying to kind of slam through the metta, but it's an attempt. Yeah. And so that sense of pacing, the recognition that we know that boundless loving kindness is possible. It's like that reminder in these situations. It's usually helpful to notice that we can do, for example, compassion for ourselves. And so much of this past week, I hope everyone has been doing compassion for themselves. I was praying, actually, that we were all remembering that. Really important. Really, really important. Because that sense of it will protect what we love, right? And if we really love ourselves completely, we want to take care of ourselves happily. Yeah. We want to be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. It takes sometimes work. I've kind of stopped listening to the radio for a while, but last month when I was listening, there was a great show. I don't know if you've heard of Radio Lab. It's a public radio show on Fridays on science, and they have one for kids, Radio Lab and NPR for kids. And this particular show was about the Europa Clipper. So I'll explain it a bit. It was actually launched October 14th, and it's a spacecraft about the size of a basketball court that the NASA space probe, and its purpose is to study Europa, which is a Galilean moon of Jupiter. And Europa's a moon smaller than our moon. And so the purpose of this probe is to follow up on evidence that there's actually under the surface of Europa, under the crust, there's a subsurface ocean. And the intent is to find out if it's habitable, investigate it. So this man they had on Radiolab, I don't know his name. I didn't hear it. I tuned into it a little bit later after they had given his name. They invited him to speak, and all these kids were allowed to ask him questions. And this 10-year-old said to him, on takeoff, what if the spacecraft explodes? And he got so excited because he knew that meant she knew that is possible. So he was so excited, and he said, "You're right." He said, "Yes, that's the most dangerous part of that whole flight, is that it can likely explode when it's taking off." So there was a kind of quiet after he said that, and then she said, "So what if it explodes?" And he worked on this space probe 25 years, nonstop. So after she said, what if it explodes, there was another long silence. And he really paused and he said, I will cry. I will definitely cry. And I had such respect for him for that. Like, I thought, like, he was so honest with the kid, and that he made it be totally okay that you could cry and after something like this. And it was so beautiful. And we, of course, part of our practice is non-attachment to the result of the effort, right? But that doesn't mean that the effort um, isn't noble and right, and that we can feel the pain of something not working out the way we would like. And I think this is where it's so important. And of course, you've heard us say this so much, but I was saying to a friend on a text message, that it's so important to be in truth, in touch with the truth of this time. And that the unimaginable is reality. And she wrote back and she said, I can't do that. It's too monumental in totally the wrong way. So I wrote and I said, well, how about you try how, I know how incredibly difficult it is to accept what's happening, but how about trying for 1 second a day? She wrote back and she said, yeah, I can do that. This doesn't mean that we have to feel like we have to do it 1 second at a time over and over. This means 1 second at a day. And I really mean that. It's important to go where there's no pressure, but to get that it's incredibly hard. And I think the alternative is to get indifferent. And so it's different to know we need to just, take a break and skillful means, right? The discernment of what is the most helpful. But I think that sense that when that guy said, I'll cry, I'll definitely cry. It's like to remember that. It's just how do you find equanimity in these times? And I would say that the work is that we dig deep and deep and deep and deep. And we know what equanimity is. We actually know what it's like. Non-attachment, non-aversion, non-delusion. We know that wonderful feeling when it's a genuine acceptance. We can, and it's so important to remember it's equanimity that accepts. It's not us. It is not the ego that accepts what is incredibly hard. It's equanimity. And so to feel like, in whatever range of emotion that's happening, whether it's fear or anger or despair or like what hopelessness, all those very wonderful, important emotions that happen in hard times. It's like I think the deepest place is just we understand karma and we understand karuna and compassion in relationship to karma. And so we know one of the even teachings with compassion, with the loving kindness, it's the easy being. With compassion, when you pick the first of the categories, you can pick a suffering being that isn't suffering in the present, but will be suffering in the future because of their actions. And so we all know that there's the suffering that's the hardest to accept is often the unnecessary suffering. And there's a vast, vast possibility of this unnecessary suffering that we feel like we could have helped a little bit with at least, or ameliorated a bit. And so understanding that, accepting that we have to live through this karma and the karma of everyone on the planet, yeah, it's like it takes work. But that doesn't mean that work isn't the right path. The Bodhisattva of compassion, Kuan Yin, said, or is said to have said, the winds of circumstance blows across emptiness. Whom can they harm? So before Halloween. I think maybe the night before, Jesse and I watched The Great Pumpkin, Snoopy. I don't know if you know The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. Um, and every time I see something like they're so mean to each other. These kids, these kids are, it's almost like the more open and sensitive I get, I'm like, wow, how can they be so mean to Charlie Brown? And anyway, partway through the film, Snoopy dresses up as, of course, the Red Bear and the fighter pilot. But he comes, something he doesn't do well up there in the sky, and he comes down and he goes into this house where Schroeder is. Schroeder's the guy who plays the piano. Schroeder's playing. When he sees Snoopy, he plays this really happy song on the piano, and Snoopy pulls out of his mood and he's dancing and he's twirling and he is so joyful. And you can't help but feel mudita for him. He's just the embodiment of joyful. And it goes on for a while. And then Schroeder changes the tune, and it's this melancholy, sorrowful, sad song. And Snoopy is trying to still dance to the music he was hearing and attached to. And and then he just starts sobbing, like he's sobbing, sobbing. And then Schroeder shifts it back to the happy music, and Snoopy's even happier than before. Like now in relationship to that sadness and that it ended, right? And he's so happy. He's wiping his tears. He's dancing again. And then Schroeder starts playing the sad music again. And if you're really paying attention, you just see how fleeting and intense this stuff is. And so he's playing the sad music, and Snoopy goes over to the piano and he starts trying to give Schroeder the idea, no, we're not doing this anymore. We're doing the happy stuff. And so, no. And then Snoopy just starts howling and crying, and then he decides to leave. And he walks out. You can see him going back to his house, his little house, right? But what I feel like is so transparent, it's so well done, is that attachment to the joy and the resisting the sorrow. And the resistance to the sorrow is so poignant and so well done. It's all of us. It's all of us. And then he surrenders. And he walks out and he recovers. He goes to recover in the way he would do. So this is a poem from the 13th century in China. I first read it in 78. I dug it out. And this is this is a poem of great despair. And I'm hesitant to read it, but I think it's important because it embodies it. This was a time of a lot of traditionally educated people in China that then the Mongol conquerors came in and changed everything. It was a period of domination of the Mongols of China. So this is by Feng Su Chen. It's called Sighing for the Times. And if you don't get anything else from it, the title is awesome. Sighing for the Times. Lay down the net. This is no age for heroes. Sparks from stone, light and shadows, not much time. Fight it and you're just a silkworm. They'll skin you for brocade, make thread of your cocoon, and scrub you to death in the cleaning. I find that helpful because it's the truth of that feeling, right? And how important to honor it so beautifully. Mm. And so I want to read the opposite. Well, maybe an intermediary, and then the opposite. I've read Wang Anshi so many times. I hope you've memorized his poems. He lived 1021 to 1086 in China, and he was a great, great, great man. He worked directly with the emperor to totally try to create radically egalitarian social reforms to improve the lives of commoners in the economy, agriculture, military, education, taxation, law, and trade. He believed that if common people are happy and prosperous, the whole country will flourish. And he really did it, and it lasted a while. And then, of course, the emperor died. All the conservative elements came in and dismantled his reforms, and he retired to a reclusive life and wrote these amazing poems. So this is, I'd say, the middle one. Following prosper, bright gathers rhymes. Lost to my country, I'm living on Bell Mountain. Green pines, courtyard walls, rooms. The monastery's hidden among sunlit mist. Here, sound itself reveals Buddha nature perfectly. This wind whispering, then wailing, streams hushed, then tumbling. There's the equanimity, right? Streams, wind whispering, then wailing. There's the paradox, right, of life, the joy and sorrow, the pain and pleasure, streams hushed, then tumbling. Right now, if somebody asks me how I am, I say I'm deeply okay, and I'm not okay. And I accept the paradox. It seems natural for this time at the moment. We'll see, but dawn lights up the room. Obviously, he's been awake all night. Dawn lights up the room. I close my book and sleep, dreaming of Bell Mountain and full of tenderness. How do you grow old living with failure and disgrace? Stay close to the cascading creek, cold, shimmering, no matter what's happening, yeah? Hold on to your goodness. Hold on to your practice. Take refuge in Sangha. Rejoice in Sangha. So I'm going to read my favorite poem of all by Li Po, because I think it's the best and most important. After climbing Paling Mountain in the West Hall at Kai Yuan Monastery, offered to a monk beyond this world on Hang Mountain, offered to a monk beyond this world on Hang Mountain. There's a sage monk on Hang Mountain That's all of us. That's all of us. That's each one of us, by the way. There's a sage person on Hang Mountain. The beauty of 5 peaks are true bones. Autumn moon alight in a sea of water, revealing his 10,000-mile heart. A guardian gone into southern darkness. Pilgrims of the way all visit him there. Sweet dew sprinkling down, a language clear and cool, gracing flesh and hair. Bright lake, a mirror of fallen heaven. A scented hall, a gate into all the silver. Come for the view. I feed on kind winds, new blossoms, teaching mind this vast. New blossoms is enlightenment. Come for the view. May we feed on kind winds, new blossoms, teaching mind this vast. So I'm going to end with a song. I'm not going to explain it, but it's a song that got me through all the hard years, all our early hard years. Leon Thomas, great African American blues jazz singer, yodeler. I'll explain it some other time. It's called Echoes. Very important. But I have to sing it. There is a place where it's always spring. It's where echoes shine and reflections ring. There you will find peace abides over everything. It's where echoes shine and reflections ring. There you will find peace abides over everything. It's where echoes shine and reflections ring. Dig deep, everybody. You gotta find it. Love you.
I'll put a little link to the Leon Thomas song and
Oh, good.
Schroeder and Snoopy.
Oh, the Schroeder and Snoopy one. So love somebody crying like that because it's so true and beautiful. It's something else.
Mm.
Mm.
Thank you, Michelle. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Mm.